thought it was a pretty strong game of footy from both teams. Obviously, the Sharks came out flying, nice ball movement, up-tempo through the middle of the ruck, and they seemed to have Penrith rattled there for the first 15, 20 minutes of the game, especially in the middle of the field. Penrith were definitely on the back foot in the forwards early, but to their credit, they scrambled, hung in there. They probably saved a try or two as well in that first 20 to 30 minutes, which obviously helps them out at the back end of the game. Penrith found their feet after about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, which obviously coincided with the Sharks dropping ball after ball there for a good 10 or 15-minute period. I don't know what was going on, but pretty much every second tackle that they were taking, it was simple hit-ups, and they were just dropping the ball and giving it back to Penrith. Can't do that against Penrith. Penrith probably should have beaten them by more, considering the amount of ball they gave back to Penrith there. But their goal line defence hung in strong, which has probably been one of the big upticks for Cronulla this year. Last year, pretty much any time someone was on their goal line, they scored within a set or two, and that hasn't happened this year. So something that they can sort of back themselves on there. Penrith started to increase the physicality and the speed of the game in and around the middle and their line speed, because it was pretty slow early, which I think the Sharks were managing to sort of get on the edges of, and it was definitely something that they lifted up after about 25 minutes when they started to get a bit more ball and get on top. And then the Sharks made error after error, played poorly for a good half an hour, 15 minutes either side of half time, which let Penrith get back on top. I mentioned the goal line defence. I think it was probably the only reason that Penrith that the game was kept as close as it was towards the back end of the game. Penrith kept the outside backs for the Sharks really quiet, which is something that hasn't happened this year against any other team. They shut down all the meters that they get out of dummy half, and it ended up being sort of Talakai and Rudolph trying to bully through the middle there, because the outside backs weren't making the meters, and then the second and third hit up, they'd make a mistake and give it back to Penrith. But Finucane was decent. McInnes was really good. Nakora was okay. Rudolph and Brayley were probably the best of the forwards, and Hines was the Sharks' best player. Edwards had a few errors in this game. I thought it was going to be one of those games where he just gets the yips and fucking drops every ball there at one stage, but he came back really strong. His running meters were fantastic. He linked up well in the back line, and he played quite well towards the back end of the game. Api, Kikau and Sorensen were great through the middle of the field. They were probably the best. Fish Harris did have a quiet night in this one, which was unusual for him, but Cleary and Tago were their best players. Tago took a couple of nice opportunities and broke the Sharks open on that side of the defence. And Cleary's kicking game, I think the big momentum shift in this game was that dropout. Sharks were coming to get him. I think they'd had two sets in a row. They would set up on Penrith's line. Penrith were starting to look a bit gassed. And then he kicks a dropout fucking 10 metres out just straight across the sideline, and they get the ball back and they march down the other end of the field. And
he gets a big bucks.
And I don't think the Sharks got back into Penrith's half for the next 15 or 20 minutes. So, that's massive momentum shift. Clearly the man of the match, I thought, in this game.
I would argue Api was...
I think
Api was man of the match. I thought the way he orchestrated Penrith's attack was absolutely fantastic. I'm happy to have him at the Tigers next year, because I think he's actually the best hooker in the game
angles,
now.
The angles that he
pulled some of their edges that well. Actually, no, go on, Gumpy. Talk us
Drag
through
in the middle of the defence
around.
around.
He's engaging that A defender, which gives Yo and Cleary and that the opportunity to get to spots on the field that Penrith want to attack from, and Koroisau gets them to those points. Cronulla were good until... obviously the times that Barney said, and they sort of made some errors. You've got to look at it at the moment. Penrith are by far the best defensive team in the comp. They concede 11 points a game. So if you've got 4 opportunities to score against Penrith, you've got to take them. And if you don't, you're going to get beaten. If you only score 2 tries and you get to 12, Penrith are probably going to beat you.
And there was probably 2 opportunities
in terms of that. So you've just got to be... really good for 80 minutes and take every opportunity that you get and get that 4 tries that, is well above average, because they average 2 tries against them a game, so it's twice the average.
And
but that's probably what you need to beat them.
Is get in early and make them chase, because they do panic. They rush at the bit a bit.
In terms of that. So, look, Cronulla showed their medal as a contender for top 4, definitely. They gutsy. Their defence is really good as well. In terms of that, I think Connor Tracy's a good player, but they lose a bit with Katoa coming out of yardage. Like they're second to Penrith in terms of coming out of yardage with Mulatalo and Katoa, and Connor Tracy's not that player, which he's a good first grader.
He's been fantastic for last month, but he's not.
But he's
Katoa.
not a winger in terms of that. He's a makeshift.
You can't bake 160 off him.
Correct in terms of that. So they lose a little bit there, but I don't know that they sort of had the momentum either to sort of play off that either in terms of that anyway. So had it have sort of been there. Koroisau, I thought, again, was the best player on the field. Tago was really, really good with the opportunities that he had. Despite the errors, Dylan Edwards, again, did Dylan Edwards. But the Sharks, the forwards went well. Brayley was really good defensively, as always. He, like in the middle of that field for a little bloke, he puts his head where people shouldn't put it.
Yeah, he gets bumped off a bit, but he fucking puts in every time they come at him.
Yeah, he shouldn't. Well, actually, in the middle of the field, they don't do Brayley a service. They leave him one-on-one quite a bit, the Sharks forwards, and he really shouldn't be.
Because they're
We've
still,
mentioned it plenty
they're
of
still
times.
carrying slugs. They're still carrying slugs.
Tolman and Fafita that shouldn't be in the team.
Yep.
Ueli's not getting enough minutes. Rudolph's playing big minutes, and he's really the only big forward that they've got out there for the most of the game. And then you're cycling through 15 minutes of Fafita, who goes missing a little bit. Tolman, who's not really big enough.
His first two plays, Fafita errors.
Goes all right, you know.
So he came on and he had an error.
And
he
Ueli's
dropped
not
the ball,
fit yet,
and then he missed a tackle that led to Penrith getting into yardage. So, look, great player Andrew Fafita in his day, but he's getting too much game time.
Fafita and Tolman need to go.
Maybe out of necessity. They might not have.
Graham needs to go to the bench at worst. He
Anyone
probably
else.
could go as well.
But look, they're a side that is legitimate top forward based on defence. I'm looking forward to the match this week, actually. But
Sharks and Souths, yeah.
Sharks and Souths game to see where they both are.
Not anymore, but in an ideal world, Fanukin in the middle and McGuinness starts at lock.
Ueli back playing 50 to 60 minutes. Oregon Kafusi next year should be someone that can
tremendous.
at least run a ball
He will
through
be
the middle, which is something
whether he's on the bench or not,
we do like
he'll be
that,
fantastic
that bit
for
of
you.
45 minute.
He's been fantastic last 3 or 4
He's been
games for
fantastic
Parramatta.
last 3 or 4 years. He's
but
underrated,
the last 3 or
but
4 games for Parramatta, he's been playing fantastic.
He'll be big for you. Ollie?
Well, I think watching the game overall, and this one probably sort of led me even further down Gum's point of view is I think Penrith, and I've said it before, they're just that level above, and they probably will go on to win the comp. And the reason is both sides, as we've all pretty much said, had periods where they were off. Cronulla, yes, if they sort of kicked on and hadn't had those periods where they dropped off, they would have won the game. Why? Because they would have put in that 80-minute performance.
If they'd hung into half-time, I reckon it would have been like a field goal shootout at the end of the game.
Actually, let's not underrate that because they didn't not hang. They played like fucking dog shit for a good 25 minutes in the middle. Yeah. And as a defence, it kept them in the game.
But Penrith's first 20 was dog shit.
And that's the thing is too, right? Penrith can afford to do that and still win. And at the end of the day, that's what they did. Penrith also did have a bit. It wasn't just Cronulla. Penrith did have the periods there where they were off, but they still won. So to beat Penrith, you've really got to be on, and they've really got to dominate them
for an hour at least. You need to be dominant against Penrith.
And the thing with Penrith too,
I just can't see any.
It's a typical bully. You've got to get up and punch him in the face to beat him.
Yeah.
But I know I mentioned before with Parramatta, the difference between their best and their worst is huge, whereas Penrith, it's not much of a difference. There's a difference, but their worst is still
good enough. This is nowhere near their worst, but
their worst was last week and they won.
But their worst is still good enough to beat 13 teams in the competition.
Yeah, absolutely.
As was proven last week, yes. But yes, that's right. Yeah, like I said, there's been 3 teams that can beat them, and they need everything to go right on the right day and the right conditions to do so. That said, the window's not closing, but there's mail around. There might be someone leaving quite soon. There's and they're losing a couple of forwards. Api's massive loss for this team.
Yeah,
their forwards they're
not the same team. With Kenny on the field.
Bench is starting to look
huge.
This bench is starting to look quite weak. I know Leota was out and a few others, but but every team cycles and cycles. They'll win this comp and then they'll run third next year. But I'm still going to put my flag.
They'll probably win next year as well.
I'm going to post my flag on Api 3 points.
Right. Well, I'm happy with Api, Cleary, Targo, or Brayley. 60-odd
I'll
tackles.
go. What do you reckon?
I'd say
What do you
Targo.
reckon?
Targo.
Yeah, more of an
Oh, it's
impact.
got to be
Yeah.
Targo.
Okay.
Can I just, before I don't think he should get 3-2-1, but someone who I think it's been pretty consistent, but I think in this game was the standout forward for Penrith was actually a former Sharks player, Scott Sorensen.
He's fantastic.
I thought
when
he was
came. No, I
amazing.
agree. Yeah.
Spencer Lenu was fucking
Oh,
really good as well.
Spencer-
Ball in
yeah.
hand.
Doesn't play
He
enough.
fucking bust some
Yeah.
holes through the
Yep.
middle of the Sharks at different points in this game. He was
just-
super strong ball
He's
in hand.
hardest runner.
Yeah.
Spencer
Oh,
Leniu, isn't he?
Runs
He
off the
runs
back
so
fucking
hard.
fence, man.
Does
I wouldn't want to stand in front of him.
where's Liam Martin at in life? Like
He's
he's.
missing
I
a lot
hope
more
he's doing
tackles than
okay.
he used to.
I'm sure he's fine, but like,
He
I
was
don't think
super
he's-
aggressive in this game in the first 20 minutes, which actually was a bit of a downside to Penrith because he gave away a couple of penalties and did a couple of silly things in attack as well. But yeah, I don't know.
don't think
He's
he's been
definitely
great
come back
at
to the
all.
pack. As we both mentioned, we probably wouldn't have picked him for Origins 2 and 3.
No.
So
But
He might be better off going back to a Benjamin and Wrecking Ball again.
you know,
because he's lost that.
You know, the problem with Liam Martin is that 80% of Penrith's attack goes the other way.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Too. So there's not the impact of Liam Martin that I guess that you probably want to see.
Yeah.
When 80% of their or 75% of their attack goes to Kikau, Tago and Taylor May, you even see like To'o's less tries.
Yeah.
Crichton's impact in the game is lessened because they just don't go to that side that often.
Well, even Cleary
fair call.
doubles down on that left side as well. He
Correct.
sweeps around and doubles
So
up.
they
Well,
have
it starts
Yo-
from Yo goes. Yeah.
and then
they go.
Cleary.
Yeah, but even
and then,
Cleary goes with them, you
Yeah.
know, whereas they don't all go to the right. It's you get Yo and Cleary sort of does, but Cleary passes a hell of a lot earlier than Luai does. Like Luai goes a lot further into the line on that left side than
the
Cleary
right's
does.
the right's
Yeah.
to set up for the left.
Yeah, pretty much.
In terms of that, the right run when they're setting up for the left.
Yeah.